Chag Sameach. My first Purim here at Park Avenue Synagogue, Rabbi Zuckerman, as part of our shtick, asked me a question that is forever sealed in my brain. I bet you don't remember this, but I do. Who is your favorite musical artist, he asked. And I, on the spot, for a rapid-fire response, answered, Bach. I will never forget the look on his face when he responded, did you just say Bach? Literally dumbfounded, not the answer Rabbi Zuckerman, a lover of Bruce Springsteen, or Rabbi Cosgrove, a Swiftie, were expecting. Now, just to be clear, I do love popular music, but I'm also a lover of classical music. So today I want to tell you a story about one of the great pieces of classical music, although it's not about Bach, but rather about Beethoven, and arguably his greatest masterpiece, Ode to Joy. Ode to Joy was inspired by a poem by Friedrich Schiller that Beethoven had become enamored with as a teenager while auditing Kant's lectures at the University of Bonn. But what many people don't know, that it was written much, much later during one of the darkest periods of Beethoven's life. Beethoven was living in Vienna at the time in a period of tumult in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars. He was suffering, in his words, misery in a most concentrated form, misery of both body and soul. He was going deaf. His musical teacher and musical hero, Haydn, had died. He fell in love with a woman, and for 6 years, his love went unrequited. His family life was in a shambles. He spent a year bedridden with a mysterious illness and was riddled with skull-splitting headaches. And then, believe it or not, he was mistaken for a tramp and thrown in jail and mocked for claiming to be the great Beethoven. Yet somehow, despite all of his sufferings, he kept composing. And 27 years after first falling in love with Schiller's poem, he began to bring it to life in music. After canceling and then uncanceling the concert several times, and after 2 disastrous rehearsals, on May 7th, 1824, completely deaf, Beethoven took the stage to conduct the premiere of his creative masterpiece, the first symphony ever to incorporate words or a chorus. After the final chord of Ode to Joy was played, the silence of the audience broke into a scream of applause. People leapt to their feet, waving their handkerchiefs and chanting his name. Beethoven, still facing the orchestra and still waving his arms to the delayed internal time of music only he could hear, noticed none of it. Until Caroline Unger, the 19-year-old contralto Beethoven had chosen to sing Ode to Joy, stood up, took his arm, and gently turned him around. Ode to Joy would become the crowning achievement of his crowning achievement, the chorale finale of his 9th and final symphony. Out of a place of darkness, Beethoven created a triumph of beauty and joy. Today, we celebrate Sukkot, which one might call our Ode to Joy, because Sukkot is the festival in which we are commanded to be joyful. The book of Deuteronomy, not what we read today, but in the book of Deuteronomy also there's an instruction about Sukkot. It instructs us, you shall be joyful at your festivals, v'samacha b'chagecha, with you, your son, your daughter, your male, your female slave, the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow in your community. You shall hold a festival, a chag, for the Lord your God 7 days in the place the Lord will choose. For the Lord will bless you and all your crops and all your undertakings, and you shall have nothing but joy. V'hayita ach sameach. But there's something that gets lost in the translation of the last line that I just provided above. The Hebrew is v'hayita ach sameach, which is usually translated as you shall have nothing but joy. But ach can also mean something like but or despite. Ach sameach might also mean something like have joy despite whatever else is going on. The command to be ach, only, even, despite, sameach, appears only for the festival of Sukkot. This ach might feel important this year. For those of us for whom accessing joy this year feels difficult as we approach the one-year anniversary of what happened when Sukkot came to a close last year, how can we heed this commandment to be joyful at such a challenging time? What is the prescription for how we should find joy in the face of our ach, as Beethoven was able to do? The great 18th century Hasidic master, Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, teaches us how. Rabbi Nachman, who was plagued by debilitating depression, understood that joy is a choice to be made. He explains it by way of an analogy. Sometimes, he says, when people are happy and dance, they grab someone standing outside the circle who is depressed and gloomy. Against his will, they bring him into the circle of dancers. Against his will, they force him to be happy along with them. So too, he says, it is with joy. It's like a person who comes to a celebration and the joy and happiness they experience can transform their worries, depression, and gloom into joy. In other words, you might show up at the wedding in a really bad mood, but when you get pulled into the hora, it has the power to transform how you feel. It's important to see that Rabbi Nachman doesn't minimize the realities of suffering or pretend they're unavoidable. But he understands that simcha isn't about escaping or sidestepping it, but finding a way to find meaning and joy, even sometimes in the midst of the hard. Rabbi Jonathan Sacks not only acknowledges that joy has the power, that the joy of others has the power to transform us, but he posits that it's only with others around us that we can truly access real simcha. Simcha, explains Rabbi Sacks, is nuanced. Joy, happiness, pleasure, and the like are all states of minds, emotions. They belong to the individual. We can feel them alone. Simcha, he says by contrast, is not a private emotion. It means happiness shared. It's a social state, a predicate of we, not I. Simcha in the Torah, he continues, is never about individuals. It's always about something we share. The festivals, as described in Deuteronomy, are days of joy precisely because they are occasions of collective celebration. You, your sons, your daughters, your male and female servants, the Levites in your town and the strangers, the fatherless and the widows living among you. Simcha is about being with others to share in our sense of jubilation. Tomorrow, as part of our Sukkot services, we will read the book of Ecclesiastes, or Kohelet, that reminds us, to everything there is a season, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Joy lives not in thoughts of tomorrow, but in the grateful acceptance and celebration of today. As the words that we recited earlier in our Hallel service remind us, Zeh hayom asa Adonai nagila v'nismach avo. This today is the day that Adonai created. Let us find joy in it today. This is our moment. Sukkot is our time to laugh, to sing, to dance, to give thanks, and to celebrate, which is something our ancestors surely knew how to do. In the time that the temple still stood in Jerusalem, for the 7 days of Sukkot, tens of thousands of people would gather every night in the outer temple courtyard to watch a special ceremony called the Simchat Beit HaShoeva, the rejoicing at the place of the water drawing. Accompanied by harps and lyres and cymbals and trumpets, they would dance and sing praise to God. According to the Mishnah, He who has not seen the rejoicing at the place of the water drawing has never seen rejoicing in his life. Clearly, our ancestors knew how to party. We may not celebrate in the courtyard of the temple in that way anymore, but let its memory inspire us in this, our Zman Simchatenu, our season of rejoicing. For today, at least, despite whatever else may be happening in our lives, in Israel, in the US, and in the world, today, Hayom, let us be joyous. We are here. We are alive. We are the beneficiaries of so many blessings in our lives. We are together in this beautiful and spectacular community. Let's all raise our voices and sing together our ode to joy. ושמחת בחגיך והיית שמח. Everyone, ושמחת בחגיך והיית שמח. ושמחת בחגיך והיית שמח. ושמחת בחגיך והיית שמח. Thank you, Cantor, for helping me out.
Thank you for joining the Park Avenue Synagogue family. I hope you enjoyed the sermon. Please consider supporting our online community by scanning the QR code or by going to supportpas.org or by making a donation. Shalom and see you in Shul.